My name is Aika Hattori. I'm a 31-year-old housewife. This time, I'd like to tell you about what happened to my horrible brother-in-law. 3 years have passed since I married Masayoshi, who is 1 year older than I am. When we first married, we were too busy with work to think about having children, but recently we've started talking about trying. In reality, however, it's not that simple. I didn't feel too good about it, but decided to go see a gynecologist. I was given the diagnosis that I was infertile. It seems that it's difficult for me to have a child. I've always lived with the idea that I would definitely have children in the future, so I was quite shocked by the news. As a result, I ended up shutting myself in for a few days. Fortunately, even though I had been told I was infertile, my husband accepted the news and it didn't affect our relationship. Thanks to his encouragement and support, I was able to get back on my feet. But I do want children after all, and that feeling won't go away so easily. Whenever I see children playing in the park, I can't help but gaze with longing. I tried infertility treatment, but even that didn't work, and continuing treatment for any longer was difficult financially. I spoke with my husband, and we decided we had no choice but to give up on the treatment too. One day, I got a message from my husband while he was at work.
Do you have a minute?
Yeah, what's wrong?
I got a message from my parents' house. This year they want all the relatives to gather for Oban.
All the relatives? I wonder why. They've never done that before.
Dad was sick until recently, right?
Yeah, his liver wasn't up to shape, was it?
Apparently he decided that he hasn't got long, so he wants to meet as many people as he can and express his gratitude face to face.
Isn't he over-exaggerating? His liver's all better now, isn't it?
Well, he's always been like this. Anyway, we've obviously been invited, but what do you want to do?
I don't mind going to see him, but if it's all the relatives, then it means they'll be there too, won't they?
You mean Yoshihiro and his wife?
He's my brother-in-law now, so I don't want to say this, but I'm not too good at dealing with those two.
I'm the same. Just because they're rich doesn't mean they can act like that.
What was it they were running again? A family restaurant chain?
Yeah, they're not nationwide, but locally, they're pretty big.
Of course, that's a great thing. But they really like to show off that they're rich, and it's getting pretty old.
You really don't like them, huh?
Yeah, it's really tiring.
You don't have to force yourself to go.
No, it's okay. I do want to see your mom and dad.
Thank you.
Like that, everyone gathered at Oban, and we had a feast. Apparently, it's the first time that everyone has gathered at once. And the brother-in-law that I mentioned earlier...
Here you go! It's wine that costs over 10,000 yen! Drink! Drink!
You'll never have another chance to drink wine like this. Go ahead and drink. They were just as obnoxious as usual. We had no choice but to laugh along with their typical rich guy act. This is why I don't like meeting them. Their 2 sons were here too. They're 11-year-old twins, so they look exactly the same, but their personalities couldn't be more different.
I want meat! I hate fish! Make me a hamburg steak!
The one making a fuss over the food is the older brother, Hikaru. The one sitting and eating his food quietly is the younger brother, Akira. He's much paler and thinner than his brother. Apparently his body is quite weak. I've heard that he ends up bedridden a few times a month. Hikaru, on the other hand, is just as energetic as he looks, and is naughty too. He's good at his studies and at moving his body. After a while, Hikaru became bored of the party.
Hey, come on, fight me!
Stop it!
He started to pick a fight with Akira. It seemed a bit too much for just play fighting, so... Come on, stop that. He says it hurts. Go on, your hamburg steak is ready, so go eat. I tried to subtly give Akira some space. By the way, both of their parents were already drunk on the wine they brought. They had no attention to spare for their children, and there was no one else to take care of the children, so I checked up on Akira myself. Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?
No, I'm okay. Thank you, Auntie. I'm sorry for always causing you trouble.
He spoke so politely and so carefully that it was hard to believe that he was an elementary school student. As people who love kids, that alone just makes my husband and I smile. I understand the feeling of wanting to spoil your nephews and nieces. To be honest, I'm more fond of Akira than I am of Hikaru. He's quiet, but polite, and a very kind child. Like this, I was busy with keeping an eye on my nephews, helping with cooking, and suddenly one whole day had already passed. It wasn't a very relaxing visit. When we arrived home, we were tired out. I could only hope that they would never hold another event like this again. But a few days later, we were called by my brother-in-law and went to visit his home. We were told that he would explain once we had met, so we arrived without any idea of what he wanted. We were welcomed into a lavish living home, and once we had made ourselves comfortable, my brother-in-law suddenly asked us something incredible.
The truth is, we'd like you to take Akira in. You can't have your own children, right?
It was unbelievable. We couldn't understand what was going on and sat there shocked. We couldn't understand the situation at all. By take him in, do you mean adopt? But why? When I asked, my brother-in-law began to explain. According to him, they're happy with Hikaru, who is so energetic and excels at everything he does, but they didn't see a point to raising Akira. If they're going to have to spend money raising Akira, they'd rather use that money on Hikaru alone. My brother-in-law explained his selfish and crappy reason without showing any guilt. We were enraged. First, my husband lost his patience.
Don't you dare! Do you even understand what you're saying? We have no use for a sick child, so you take him in. You're being ridiculous!
Indeed. However, my brother-in-law wasn't at all unnerved.
How the hell would you understand? We have to make sure a competent person takes over the family business. What's wrong with us prioritizing rationality?
I wonder if he counts as one of those psychopath types. The three of us ended up arguing. We must have been using quite loud voices. We were all worked up, but
Stop it!
we stopped fighting when we heard a familiar voice. In the direction of that voice stood Akira. It seemed as though he had been listening to our fight. With a sad expression, Akira spoke.
If that's what you want, Dad, then I don't mind. Of course, that's if Uncle and Auntie are also okay with it.
Even though he had been treated like he was in the way by his own father, Akira had accepted it. As I watched him, I decided, all right, we'll adopt Akira. Are you really sure? I felt that if we left Akira with such low-life parents, he would surely break someday. Then, in order to prevent that, it would still be better if we raised him instead. After hearing my response, my brother-in-law was elated. I couldn't believe him. Just like that, it was decided that we would adopt Akira. By the way, my brother-in-law's wife had also been completely supportive of the idea. What on earth is wrong with this family?
How is he?
Yeah, it looks like he's calmed down a bit. I was so shocked when Akira's school called and told me he had collapsed.
What happened?
The doctor says it's just anemia. We just have to let him lie down for a bit.
I'd heard about it, but he really is physically weak.
I think it might be stress-related too. It's only been 3 months since he came to our home.
Still only 3 months. Feels like so much longer because of all the stuff we've been up to.
Me too. Everything really changes dramatically once there's a child in the house, doesn't it?
It might be a bit too late for this, but are you really sure this was the right choice? Taking Akira in?
You really are a bit too late. But I wanted to ask you the same thing too. I decided it without asking you properly after all.
Even if you hadn't said anything, I would have. I'd already made up my mind.
Me too. Of course, I have a lot of worries, but those worries are just proof that we're prepared to do anything to raise him well.
Makes sense. I can't imagine what would have happened if we had left him with my stupid older brother.
That's what pushed me to make the decision. In other words, it gave me determination.
That household has another child.
Hikaru. Yeah, it does make me worry.
Well, there's nothing we can do about that. So let's do everything we can to raise Akira well.
I agree. 5 years later, Akira became a high school student. He had initially begun swimming to gain more strength, but it became a hobby, and as a result, he had grown more muscular and is a strong sportsman. Even in high school, he's continued swimming and even gained first place in a tournament. He's the ace of the swimming team. He's a star student too, putting a lot of effort into his studies. But his kindness hasn't changed one bit. For example, he never forgets to gift me carnations on Mother's Day. Like that, the three of us have become a real family. The way we became his parents is a bit strange, but we're proud to be his parents nonetheless. My brother-in-law hasn't changed. Since that day, we've only met once, but they were still as obnoxious as always. I saw Hikaru too. But his naughtiness had notched up a few levels. His selfishness hadn't changed either. I wasn't surprised, but they had no interest in how Akira was doing and had never contacted us to ask how he was. But one day, my brother-in-law sent me a message out of the blue.
Aika, it's been a long time. Can we speak for a bit?
What is it?
It's not something to say over the phone, so I'd like to meet.
No thank you. If you have something to say, then go ahead.
All right, then can I call you at least?
I'd like you to continue with messaging. Even if you call, I won't answer.
All right. The truth is, I'd like to borrow some money, even if just a bit.
You called someone out just to make a joke?
That's not it! I really do need the money! I just need a few million!
A few million isn't just a few million. First of all, why are you asking me? Don't you think you should ask your own brother, my husband, first?
He ignores all my calls.
I regret not having done the same.
Don't say that! Please, just lend me whatever you can!
Why are you suddenly in need of so much money? You were always showing off your wealth.
I guess you don't use social networking so much.
No, I don't. Why?
Truth is, thanks to that, we're on the verge of bankruptcy.
Thanks to social networking?
Yeah, please let me explain.
Please do so concisely. It all began when Hikaru started a part-time job at one of the restaurants my brother-in-law owns. He was working at a restaurant close to home, but as a result of the way he was brought up, with his every need catered to, he wasn't suitable to work. On top of that, he had a loose work ethic. His attitude towards customers was poorly, and many complaints were made about him. Of course, he was told off by the manager.
Hikaru, can you try to work a bit more seriously? You're being paid after all.
But
Are you sure you want to talk to me like that? You know who my dad is, right?
he ended up threatening the manager instead. Everyone knew that the director doted on his son, so the manager ended up keeping quiet, thinking that his position would be in danger if he angered Hikaru. Ever since, Hikaru didn't work at all and was being paid for doing nothing at all. However, Hikaru had gotten to his head, and he was to become the cause of an unbelievable situation. It started when a video was uploaded to a social networking site. It showed a man on his knees in a restaurant kitchen. One of the comments said, "The manager is bowing down to the newbie, lol!" The manager had food thrown at him while he was on his knees. All the while, the manager didn't move.
This is hilarious! Don't you have any pride? Hey! Don't you?
The video ended with Hikaru laughing and trying to provoke the manager. It was the first time I had watched a video that made me feel so unpleasant. I had been worried about what would happen to Hikaru, but I never could have imagined this. However, posting a video like this nowadays is destined to end only one way: major backlash. The comments were packed with criticism against Hikaru. It was a typical reaction, but Hikaru's name and address were made public and spread like wildfire. My brother-in-law's house was bombarded with graffiti, raw trash, and raw eggs, and became a sorry sight. Apparently, they often experience booing in the street, too. Furthermore, complaints were made against the company, and phone calls were made from neighbors asking if they really had hired such a person lacking in common sense. The contents of the video had an effect on all restaurants in the group, and their profits had hit an all-time low. My brother-in-law, his wife, and Hikaru were unable to even leave the house, and the final straw was that the manager made to go down on his knees in the video had decided to sue. He had demanded compensation for injuring his reputation and for assault. Like that, my brother-in-law was hit with a double punch of debt and compensation. The company had no way out but to go bankrupt. Like he did to me, he had asked around his friends and other relatives to lend him money, but he was ignored by all of them. Of course, I rejected him too. Hikaru was broken in by the recent events physically and mentally, and became a shut-in, unable to leave the house. My brother-in-law and his wife's relationship went up in flames, and their household had become hell. It'll be difficult for them to make a comeback from that. Akira had no interest in his previous family. I think it's for the best. I'm truly glad that we saved at least Akira from that family.